regional headquarters. For those who don't know a lot about York Regional Police, we police a community of 1.2 million people and growing like a weed every day. And that's not the marijuana weed that's growing, but we're growing like a weed. And we have 2,300 employees here at YRP, and you're in our regional headquarters. So we cover 1,750 square kilometers. We have 16 different locations, but this is the regional headquarters for the police service. There are over 700 employees that work from this facility, and later on this evening we're going to give you an opportunity to see some stuff behind the scenes that I think you'll find very fascinating and come to realize how sophisticated this police service is in terms of the business that we do in our community to keep you safe each and every day. And I'd also just like to indicate to you that York Region is the safest community of its size in Canada. And some of you have maybe heard me say this before, but we would compare ourselves because of the population to cities like Montreal and Toronto to some degree, but Peel Region, Durham Region, Winnipeg, Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver. So those are our peer group size communities, and by far we are the safest from that pure lot. But also, if you have an opportunity to read Maclean's magazine, once a year they publish the top 100 safest communities in Canada. York Region is ranked number 98 of 100. 100 is the safest. York Region is ranked number 8.
Awesome.
98, yes. And just to show you, the 99 is Halton Region, which is Oakville and Burlington. Population of 500,000. I said we are 1.2 million. And the safest community, according to Maclean's magazine, is a little place called Caledon, population of 80,000. So we're in great company, and we truly are so blessed the fact that we live in such a unique community, a community that is so diverse and brings so many different cultures that it makes it a real joy for our members of this police service to serve such a great community. Tonight, Samir and I and Paul a little bit are going to do our best to entertain you on a. I'm going to do my best. He says, "Be funny." My command staff know that I'm not. My joke telling is not great, so funny may be difficult for me. But we're going to talk about, and we'll do it, I think, relatively quickly. But we're going to talk about I'm going to tell you, an absolutely marvelous opportunity to go visit Pakistan, and I'm going to tell you what a beautiful country, and what a great opportunity for myself and Paul and of course Samir, but to interact and meet so many marvelous people. And I can tell you that you're going to see some pictures in a little bit. Huge connection. This will be neat for my own staff to know, but absolutely huge connection. The people I ran into, everyone said, "Oh, by the way, I have a relative living in Richmond Hill, or I have a relative living in Mississauga, or Aurora," and I'm going, "Holy smokes! Like that's York Region. This is our community." And it was really nice to see the open door policy that we were given, and I'm going to tell you the VIP treatment was significant. It was really great. I want to thank the Consul General. Thank you, sir, for making that unfold for us. And
it all started by us going and meeting him and
exactly
his comfort level, and then the visa and the cup of tea, and that's how it started.
And thank you, sir. And also, SM Munir, thank you very much too for what you did to help make sure that unfolded.
You know, I have my habit, right?
So he wants to be Vanna.
Thank you so much for the follow-up dinner and the comfort level that he gave to us.
Absolutely.
And to you, and in spite of the fact that you were not there, the way you had things organized by the FPCCI to welcome us and the chief at so many occasions, whether it be Karachi or whether it be Islamabad. So that was really awesome.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And before we get going, I just want to introduce the command staff here. So Deputy Chief Tom Carrique, Deputy Chief Andre Crawford, Superintendent Ricky Verapan, Inspector Jackie Wilson, Superintendent Mike Slack, Superintendent Graham Turrell, Inspector Brian Bravner, Inspector Henry DeRuiter, and I saw Graham Turrell, Superintendent Graham Turrell. Oh, Graham, Superintendent Graham Beverly, thanks. So, oh, and certainly,
of course.
Sir Paul.
Our diversity officer.
Yeah. So we, you heard sort of how our journey began. Samir had indicated that there was going to be a leadership conference in Islamabad, and they were looking for someone to present on leadership, and particularly wanted someone from Canada. And Samir was very kind enough to pitch me into the deep end and do that presentation. I did it, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, but the presentation was around the importance of building relationships in communities, and the importance of police building relationships in communities. And that was the gist of the presentation I did for over 40 minutes at the conference. So soon as word got out that we were going to Pakistan, I know the Consul General's good friend, the Consul General from Turkey, insisted that we pay a visit along the way. So our plans were to go for a week to Pakistan, and then a few more days were added when we had the opportunity to go to Istanbul. And before our trip, we met with these esteemed characters. I think you'll recognize all of them in the photograph, to give us well wishes before we left, and some insight and some tips on the travel that we were about to embark on. So off we went to Istanbul, and I can tell you that greeted in the typical VIP treatment, and had the significant opportunity to meet with command staff of the Istanbul Police. So from a policing perspective, this was quite unique for us, and a very insightful meeting that we had with the Deputy Chief and his staff, and very candid about things like terrorism and intelligence, those things that sometimes people don't like to have conversations around, but I know that they were very forthright and wishing to impart information for us. After we left the headquarters of the Istanbul Police, we had a unique opportunity to visit a police academy. So police academy with around 1,200, I think around 1,200 students, 2-year program. And had a kind of a neat opportunity to address, Samira and Paul and I having the opportunity to address a class of 50. And that was very, very unique. And meeting the commandant of the school. And what was really unique about this is they actually did a march past in our honor. So we basically got to inspect the 1,200 students that did a march past. So that was very unique opportunity. We Then went back to the hotel and then off to a police, so this is for the policey people in the room, a police dinner club. We've never heard of such a thing here. So we went and visited the private club of the Istanbul Police. One evening we were on the Asian side.
That's right.
The first evening we were on the Asian side, and then the second evening we were on the European side. So they own two dinner clubs, very nice looking, over the Bosphorus. The Bosphorus, it was very beautiful. And then, of course, you've got to do some of the social side of a trip, right? Everyone realizes that if you're going to travel halfway around the world, you got to see some of the other unique things. And so I'm sure many of you have probably had the opportunity to go to the Grand Bazaar in downtown Istanbul, and then also to this historic church of
What
many.
a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
Hagia Sophia. It's in restoration mode, but there's a lot of work going on. The local police out there.
So we also were greeted by the deputy mayor of Pendik, which is a community next door to Istanbul. And you know how they talk about degrees of separation, right? So this gentleman, he's the second from the end. He went to the University of Toronto, got his schooling here in Canada, lived in Toronto for 6 years after that, found himself back in Turkey, and now the deputy mayor of Pendik. And so that was a very unique individual. There was a couple things that we asked the Consul General of Turkey before we left that we would like to see. First of all, we wanted to have the opportunity to speak to the command staff of the Istanbul Police to see what their challenges were, but also we wanted to see a training academy, which they were very kindly able to allow us to do, which we showed pictures there, and then we wanted to see their Marine unit. So we had the opportunity to go on the Bosphorus in their patrol boats, visited their Marine headquarters, and quite a very sophisticated operation that they operate. We also wanted to see their air support unit, and of course timing is everything, and the air support unit is located next to the Istanbul airport, and we visited with their commander of their air support unit, and another great opportunity to talk about our business, because we also here in York Region we have a helicopter. They have dozens of helicopters in Turkey, but an opportunity for us to connect. We then were off on our way to Karachi, and greeted with tremendous respect, very much looked after, and the welcome to Karachi reminded me when you get off the plane in Toronto, when you're Terminal 3, you come out and there's everyone waiting to greet you, and we thought, Samir, this is pretty cool. They're all here to greet us. This is really cool. You've really done a nice job arranging this for us. But there were literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people waiting for their families to arrive.
But that's Noor Ahmed Khan, who specially came inside crossing security to just receive us, basically. That was really appreciated.
And as I said before, the hospitality was over the top. And we were guests of the governor of Sindh, and we stayed at his residence, and were treated again as like over the top. The treatment that we received was very, very special. And then an opportunity now to meet all sorts of well-respected individuals from the community. And Mayor, maybe you want to talk about this?
So wide spectrum of people. This was the day we arrived, and we were hosted for lunch at a gentleman called Sayyid Mubashir Imam's house. And so every place we went, we got an opportunity to meet a various different segment of people representing the political strata, the business community, and the activist and the philanthropist.
And after lunch, we were off to visit this mosque. I think some of you may.
This is the Tuba Mosque, and the chief got an opportunity to go inside. For those who don't know, the Tuba Mosque is a dome-like structure without any pillars. This is very, very unique in Karachi, and we decided that we'll go and have a look. It's quite an experience.
And after that, we had to make a very special stop. And this was for Paul's sake. So some of you may or may not be aware that Paul grew up in Karachi. So we did a little special trip to visit where his grandmother was buried at this.
So Paul had requested that he would like to pay his respects at the Kora Kabristan, and we were able to actually locate the grave. That was amazing. We got some amazing help from there. So that's what one of the things that we did.
And so after that, we visited Mr. Jamel's home, and I'm going to tell you, this gentleman here, from a safety and security point of view, I think that he was definitely, from my opinion anyway, definitely a leader around community safety. So the stories that he shared around the police liaison community committee that has been formed.
So we got an opportunity informally. The picture on the left is actually Rafiq Bhimji. In that same complex where Jamil Yusuf lives. And Jamil Yusuf, for those who know or may not know, was one of the founders of the CPLC. And the conversation, I was just enjoying the conversation, what the chief and these guys had on how things were and how things changed, and what a wonderful initiative the CPLC has brought about in Karachi. And it's a major, major shift and brought into an amazing situation in Karachi.
So I can tell you that Samir is quite the organizer. We didn't have 1 second of downtime for the entire trip. He was on the phone to somebody, arranging something. So after we visited the residents that we just talked about, I would say to Samir, so what are we doing now? Not a problem. We got dinner to go to. So our next outing the same evening was a dinner in our honor. There was about 75 people.
Do you remember that there was a plan that we were supposed to do which didn't happen because Mr. Haroon had a heart attack or an angina pain? So we were supposed to go to Mr. Haroon's place and see some artwork, and he had some angina pain, so could not. Then we just took it a little easy, and then this is Diwan Adil and his mom and his younger brother. They are, for those who know Shahid and Maliha was there, and Maliha insisted, let my brother host something, and that's how it happened. So we were at Diwan Adil's home for a lovely dinner. And
arrived back at the governor's residence about 11 o'clock at night, and then to start our next day visiting the CPLC. And I'm going to tell you, they have done some marvelous work. When they showed us some statistics that, and I didn't realize that, Karachi is like nearly 28 million people or something like that. I didn't realize it was that big. And when you start comparing it to other cities around the world of that size, and then you start to break down the crime stats and the work that the CPLC has been doing along with the police in the community, then you start to see some really, I thought, some very positive results. And these folks work hand in hand with in the picture is the chair of the CPLC, and next to him is the chief of police in Karachi. So they work from all accounts hand in hand on a pretty daily basis.
Maher was the additional IG police Karachi, and wherever Noor Ahmad Khan was not there, he was represented by his son, as you can see.
As I said, not a lot of downtime. As soon as we finished that visit, we went to the Pearl Continental Hotel, where we met with the Rotary Club of Karachi. And this was, again, arranged by Samir, but also because he's a member, and I'm an honorary member of the Rotary Club of Richmond Hill. So I had the opportunity to be their guest speaker at their luncheon at the hotel, and again, met some marvelous people, and people who have, again, lots of folks have significant connections here in the region. After that, we, in the late afternoon, we ended up going to the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, their headquarters, and I was slightly taken back. So we were taken into their boardroom. So that boardroom, I think, I want to say it, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but at least there's 100 seats around that boardroom table. And that was a bit awesome when every seat around that table was occupied. And then you get to see the leaders of industry and commerce from around Pakistan. I thought that was very special. I had the opportunity to sit next to...
This is all thanks to Mr. S.M. Muni's effort that FPCCI came together, basically.
Yeah. So having the opportunity to sit next to the Chief of Police of Karachi and asking questions about recruiting police officers, how much police officers get paid, what's the level of crime in Canada and things like that, was a very, very meaningful discussion. And again, as I said, every time I shook someone's hand, they were telling me about their relative somewhere in the Greater Toronto area. So when we were at that private dinner party, I ended up sitting next to this lovely lady. I don't know how many of you know Rana, Miss Rana. I don't know, it's truck art. So I knew nothing about truck art, and for my staff, this is something that you need to explore. This is very unique. When you see all sorts of transport trucks all decorated out, and she is seen as, I think, as a true artist, and you can see in this photograph, and Samir and I are working on how we're going to deliver this to the Prime Minister. So Samir, by the way, tells me tonight that the Chief of Police got stood up a little bit because the Prime Minister is having some outing tonight, so people had to go see the Prime Minister. So this is what happens sometimes, right? But so we have to figure out how we're going to get this. She did this painting of the Prime Minister, and it's on the side of some vehicle somewhere in Karachi somewhere. So anyway, we're going to somehow get an opportunity.
Quite an interesting experience to go and see. This lady she coordinates, and she's taken upon herself to promote truck art primarily. Go on.
So again, another late night. Next day, we're off at 9 o'clock to ring the bell at the Karachi Stock Exchange. Another really unique opportunity. Chiefs of police don't get these opportunities often to ring the morning bell of a stock exchange, and I greeted again like VIPs and had an opportunity to have a nice exchange around business and commerce with the president of the stock exchange. That was really cool.
So Mr. Munir Kamal received us. Munir Kamal was the chairman of the Pakistan Stock Exchange. So we actually got to go to the boardroom and have a conversation and a complete presentation about the success
And if
story
I'm
of
not,
Patna.
their executive director is a Canadian.
That's right. Richard Morin, which we had hosted in December, just before, prior to his starting in first week of January. Mr. Richard Morin, you'll probably see a picture of him somewhere. We met him in Islamabad, actually. He was not there in Karachi.
So after the discussions at the stock exchange, we went and then visited the IG of Sindh. This is for now back into the policing world, very interesting and very significant. That gentleman commands, for my own staff, commands 126,000 police officers. It's pretty significant. I talk about having 2,300 employees and the headaches that we sometimes have, but imagine having 126,000 people. But I got to tell you, I was very impressed with this gentleman.
Very fine gentleman.
A very fine person indeed. And guess what? He's got relatives, but they live in Vancouver. His relatives live in Vancouver, but he talked about that. As I said, this was a pretty busy day. Our next visit was with...
We had to run back because time and traffic, and we had this appointment come up.
So, personal sort of one-on-one with the governor of Sindh. That was very cool and another very astute gentleman, I can tell you, that very switched on individual. After our visit there, we went to the historic Sindh Club for lunch. Anyone been there? Anyone put their hand up who've been there?
Everybody.
Very historic.
Except you can't take pictures, so there's no picture.
And after lunch, then we raced off to the airport to go to Islamabad. And just anyone who gets to Islamabad, this is a plug for the Serena Hotel. This is a 5-star plus hotel. This is, it took me a bit to catch on. We visited with the CEO, and I saw some pictures behind his desk, and I finally realized that this was run by the Aga Khan Foundation. But I'm going to tell you, that hotel is a 5+ hotel. So for my own staff, if you ever get the chance to get to Islamabad,
Right.
great place to stay.
So that's Mr. Rauf Alam's. So that same evening, Mr. Rauf Alam, the former president of the FPCCI, hosted a huge dinner with marquees and stuff, and amazing food and great conversation. And who's who of Islamabad was there.
So again, in this location, I got to meet the IG of Islamabad.
Yes.
So for my colleagues, he's a doctor.
Yeah.
So this dinner party was in our honor. This is pretty pretty spectacular. This gentleman has a beautiful home. If anyone's had the opportunity to go, it's like 33,000 square foot home, and the tent, as you saw in the previous picture, the whole backyard was tented, and white linens and crystal and the whole 9 yards for a reception when we arrived there at 6 o'clock. It was pretty special. And again, everyone I met, I had some relative living in the Greater Toronto area. So the next day was the beginning of the Leaders in Islamabad conference, and there were only, I believe there was only 2 international speakers, one from Canada, moi, and one from the United States. So the conference was about disrupting the future. And so I had to figure out how I was going to take my remarks about disrupting the future. And it was all about how police services can connect with their communities to ensure that its residents feel safe and secure. And that was a bit of a leap for me to sort of draw that conclusion, but also I got the sense that from a community policing perspective, that may not be necessarily something that is common practice. I get that sense. What a great crowd. There was 800 participants at that conference. And one thing quite clear to me that Pakistan is on the move. There's tremendous things going on there. I was extremely impressed. Do you want to make any comment?
Yes, I wanted you to come here and then.
Okay.
So this two-day conference, I personally think, and it's my personal opinion, that the segment that was specifically chosen for the Chief of Police was probably the best segment. There was Mr. Shamsuddin Sheikh, who spoke about the development in Thar, which is a phenomenal development. There was this other lady that he was talking about, and then the Chief of Police and the Air Chief Marshal, the current serving Air Chief. So that segment drew, probably in the 2 days, the maximum participation and an amazing conversation that were taking place. So you can see the chief presenting a book to the
Air Marshal.
The Air Marshal.
Yeah.
The Air Marshal presenting a book on Pakistan to the Chief Eric Joseph.
So the one thing, the Air Marshal did speak, and my impression from that gentleman is he speaks from right here. If you ever have the opportunity to listen to him speak, he is a true leader. There's no question about it. Just
That was our segment of the presentation. There were presenters and there were people who just participated in presenting certain gifts and stuff.
But again, yet another opportunity. So
This is
you
very interesting.
don't travel halfway across the world and not pass up an opportunity to visit with all the police leaders in Pakistan in one location. So this was a very unique opportunity for Paul and I particularly. We were staying at the hotel and basically around the corner at the convention center, the chiefs of police from across Pakistan were having their own sessions.
This was probably the first ever convention that they were hosting in Islamabad at the police academy. So we met Chief Dr. Temuri at night, and he said, if you were close by, you should attend. And I think, Chief, you and we all were glad that we went and made that appearance over there. Mr. Shoaib Sadal as well, old-time memories from, he's serving in a GTTN as an advisor. This was quite impressive. The women police.
So as I said, we did receive VIP treatment. Sometimes it was a bit over the top, but it was well
So Noor Bhai
accepted.
also insisted, and then we went to the Islamabad FPCCI office as well, where Mr. Belor, who's actually the president of the FPCCI, he presented. And in fact, I think we picked up this from a newspaper covering,
Right.
which was.
And many of you will recognize that.
How could we not go to the Shah Faisal Mosque?
Right.
What an amazing.
And the opportunity to go visit the Consul General there,
High
the
Commissioner.
High Commissioner of Pakistan, the Canadian Consulate. Very unique opportunity. And we actually ran into Mr. Caldwell 3 times.
That's right, yeah.
3 times when we were there. He was at the dinner party, that very large dinner party where the marquee tent was, and then we went and visited him at his premises, and then we we went back to the hotel, and this is where we,
So the gentleman in the center is Mr. Aziz Bulani, for those who know. He heads the Serena Hotel. And we were planning to leave, and our flight got delayed, and we were supposed to go for a dinner elsewhere. So Aziz said, no, you guys are not going anywhere. I'm going to take care of all your luggage. You are attending, and what an amazing dinner that he had hosted that night. And that's where we met Perry, that's where we met Ghalib Iqbal, and a whole bunch of friends out there.
like, how can you,
Mr. Memon, from Nisar Memon was also there.
so you get a delay in your flight and you get extra treatment. It was really cool.
Yes.
He said, no, you must come to my dinner party. So he had shared with us that he was going to have the dinner party at home, but there was,
Because of bad weather?
bad weather, that he was hosting it at the top of the hotel. And he brought out his executive chefs to prepare the food. It was like, again, way up here. Hospitality was outstanding. Then after that, back to the airport to go to Lahore. So so our flight was delayed. These folks, I don't think, knew that the flight was delayed. So we were, I think, supposed to get in at 10 o'clock or so at the evening, and we arrived at 1:30.
12:30 or 1, yes.
Yeah, 1 o'clock in the morning. And these folks were waiting for us and greeted us at the airport at 1
A whole
o'clock in
bunch
the
of
morning.
Rotarians out there, they knew that he was coming, so they just hung around for 2-3 hours with flowers and, just to welcome him.
We unfortunately didn't get to tour Lahore. Another trip, perhaps.
Next time.
Next time. But while we're at the airport, you may recognize this gentleman.
Yes. He was the High Commissioner to Ottawa about 15 years ago, Mr. Shahid Malik. He was actually very kind enough that he arranged a lot of protocol. He came and sat with us whilst the second time the flight got delayed. But we had a nice, we were well taken care of, great conversation that we had, and
It wasn't delayed because of PIA.
yes, it was.
It was delayed because there was a malfunction here in Toronto. So,
Thank you.
yeah. Just
Thank
to
you.
clarify, just to clarify.
Yes.
But I got to tell you, what an outstanding opportunity to visit an outstanding country and visit so many great people. I was asked, of course, people are very interested to hear a chief of police's comments around safety and security. I was interviewed several times while I was at the conference, and I can tell you, I felt very safe and very secure in our travels around Pakistan. And so I want to thank SM Munir for helping us maneuver about. And Consul General, thank you again so much for arranging this opportunity. It's a very, very unique opportunity for a chief of police from Canada to do that. So thank you so much for that. Now, Karen, how are we doing back there? Okay. So what we also wanted to do, as I said earlier, we wanted to give you a bit of a look-see behind the scenes of some of the operations of this police service, and share with you some of the technologies that we are using here to keep this community as safe as it is. And I can tell you that the technologies that we have are in no other police service in Canada at this moment. What we're going to show you is very, very unique and very much born here in York Region. So you're going to enjoy that very much. That's up on our third floor, and we're going to show what we call our real-time operations center, and also I hope maybe a quick stop into our 911 center. That's where all 911, all phone calls into the police service come. We want to show you that too, and you're going to see the sort of the level of technology that we are using in that center.
Okay, so we're gonna head straight down. I'll try to be quick, and then I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions, so I'll just briefly go over some stuff, and then if you guys have questions and stuff, truck, mom, truck, and all that stuff, so. We are the emergency response unit, just to get everything short. We are quality support services, meaning support investigative units, as well as uniform officers, stuff like that. We specialize in high-risk search warrants, hostage rescue, and non-targeted persons. And any other kind of weapons calls or anything like that, we will be able that can assist us documenting safely. We also have a lot of negotiating and stuff like that. We have that training as well. So when there is an incident that calls for us to come, we are basically uniform guys, but just for other stuff. So I'll just quickly go over some of the stuff we have here. So as a uniform guy, we have this regular vest. This is the vest we wear. Yeah, so shoulder pads, body pads, and all other stuff. Mittens. All of that needs our level 3. It's the home style fire around bullets in backwards. The undervest, all that is the 55. Another thing this goes on is amazing. You guys have seen it before. So the blue robot on the back. If you were to go on the other side, you'll see another black robot. That thing there, you can roll up on scene. It is fully equipped. I can maintain that vehicle for a week on generator power. We can operate over that. There's an antenna that goes up 30 feet on the back, and I can operate those robots for a long time. So I can keep myself safe. I got to limit my engine all the time. Usually the only time we do that is at the bottom. So we will have to go up, we'll have to speed up in the bottom, and have to go up. I know it sounds like, oh, that would never happen. We've had 5 instances in Toronto at a time. So if I can buy my own, let's see if I was one of the other things.
sit in the seat. What?
And we're managing the reputation of the organization itself and making sure the organization doesn't get sued. that
Duty
sort of
officer,
thing.
Sergeant Bill.
And our resource management is to make sure all of our members are being
Good
looked
buddy, how you
after, and all of the incidents and the calls that we're attending are being managed
okay.
appropriately. So
Yeah, well,
This-
that's become,
nothing happens in the
You wanna
region
give me the name and the date of birth?
without the
and
RTOC
contact
knowing
information?
about units.
Contact, buddy.
or
Yeah.
police units out there. Not all of them are marked.
02.
Some of them are CIB or plainclothes officers. So we
Okay.
currently have
What's the
100 marked units out and 109 other units. That could be anything from
Oh, I
our
gotcha.
diversity,
Okay, buddy.
such as Paul Chang,
No, no worries. I'll
our
call you right back,
community
buddy.
services,
Confirm it,
our
and,
CIB,
See, you're not
our
scared.
intelligence,
So you can't
our
report
investigative units, our sex assault, our homicide.
Okay.
They're all out. So
Yeah.
that's all
Tell them,
calibrated through our
definitely
CAD
will come
system,
and,
our computer aided dispatch.
We'll meet you guys
You have
halfway
to
if
log
it's
on to the
the simplest
system.
way to do, but I'll-
So that tells
I'll
us-
call you back, okay, pal?
How many we
Okay,
have out
thanks,
there,
Chief.
so we know that we can bring resources to bear on an incident if needed. This tells us all the types of calls that we're currently on. Everything from MVC, so a collision, PI is a personal injury accident, to an impaired, missing youth, wanted persons. OORD is an out of region deployment, so they've gone out of the region. Domestics, suicide attempts, threats, traffic stops, so it lists everything, so we know what they're on. So these are the cars we have available. These are the cars, the gold are on a busy code. As the chief mentioned, community engagement is one of our big priorities within this organization.
Oh, hey, it's Rob.
So if they're on a busy code, it would be perhaps
thanks.
for
Do me a
community
favor, can you
engagement,
just,
could be for administration work.
Confirm a warrant.
Part of the
and
community
notice
engagement is
it's,
if they're in an area and there's an event going on in an arena or a soccer field, get out there and talk to the people.
It's usual spelling.
That's part of it.
Trevor?
And then the red is they're currently on a call.
22.
This tells us who all the officers are.
Thank you. Okay,
We can
bye-bye.
scroll right down and go through all the districts and who's logged on to what. We have the skills abilities on here, what the skills of our people that are out there. If we have a missing person and we need to set up a search, then we can identify who our search people are and select them and move them off to a certain location. If we have linguistic issues, so we need to do some interpreting, we can find out which of our officers speaks various language. Everything from, as you all know, the region is very diverse. We have Urdu, we have various Chinese, so Mandarin, Cantonese, sign language, Afrikaans, you name it, we have it pretty well within this region. And we can identify which of our officers, so if we clicked on the 7 Cantonese, it would list up here who our Cantonese speaking officers are, what they're doing, if they're available, and if they are, we can move them and to get them to assist. We also have other services, information databases, open source social media aspects. An example of that would be if, say, shots were fired at a location and, say, Wonderland. People tweet that out. She can set up what they call a geofence. I'm learning the language slowly. And pick up, so anyone that has tweeted something out about a shot in open source media, she can access it, see it, and hopefully that'll either identify a suspect or a potential witness.
He's now on the road.
So we can do that sort of
Gonna be
thing. It's
going
also
east
beneficial
towards
to
Metro.
assist our officers. If we have a missing person, we can access the social media, find a picture of that individual, send it to our officers on the road before they even get to the scene, so that they can keep an eye out for this individual before they get there. So again, it's all helpful, not only to the officers, but to the community. We've had it so that we've been able to do certain open source searches to identify suspects from home invasions. Just because of a word or a phrase or a name that was used, we've been able to do that in a very short time. And the guys on the road are constantly calling our crime analysts looking for information, for assistance. It's a great tool for us as we move more into technology. We too also have to get technologically savvy, as opposed to some of us dinosaurs are just like a pen and paper.
I
was asking about that because I'm also a follower of Strata, which he's looking at now. So that's why, yeah, that's why I saw what was going on.
So we need to watch and see what kind of car you get into tonight. But Strata, yeah, we do monitor it because there are potentially high-performance vehicles
Yeah.
there, potential for racing, certain things that aren't supposed to be on cars in cars, and it can cause certain issues. We've had problems before. Last week we had the helicopter up over the last one. So on the screen we were seeing the Strata location in here and what was going on at the time. And we actually had one incident that was happening. So not only did we have the helicopter up, but we also had the in-car camera up
Yeah.
on the same scene. So we're getting an above view and a front view all at the same time.
With Strata, almost every occasion ends like that for some reason.
Yep, but it's very interesting what you get to see. I know for some of the benefits for this is if someone goes missing or potentially a suicidal individual, if we can access their media, we can actually find out potentially who they're been talking to, where they may be going. It's still part of a whole investigative tool for us. So, and we also have on that screen, you can't quite see it right now, we also have the news. As you know, we are a very diverse region, so things that happen either locally, provincially, nationally, or globally can have ramifications in the region itself. So if something happens globally, it could affect a certain group here. So at least we'll be aware of it right away and be able to act and hopefully intercept anything or put any preventative measures in place using all of our resources. Any questions on the RTOC? There's a lot of technology, and we're still looking at using more and more technology.
I have a question.
Certainly.
When your officer in the car,
You gotta let us know.
Once I was in an accident, once I used to get ambulance.
And that's the sort of thing we need to know.
And then they call back.
Yeah, we do call back because if a call, we do have a system where we have a call drop. It does log that you called in, so then we will call you back to say, it's the same as
But no
if
one was, yeah, okay.
you have a child that plays with the phone, dials 911 by accident.
Yeah, that
how
one
many
person-
pocket calls you receive?
Well, we get a lot of pocket calls.
Because we don't realize it dies.
Yeah, no, and we track those as well, so we're hoping that through,
How do you deal with that? That is the.
we try to deal with it through an education, so can you make sure you either lock your phone or turn your phone off or whatever the case.
But that's our side, your side.
We
when
call
you
you.
receive that call,
We call you back.
it's in the pocket. Don't hear, don't listen. Sometimes it happens. I realize
Yeah,
that.
but it's always registered that it was
It's not
called.
happened with me, but like
Next
I
time when you have
know
a real problem, they won't look after you.
it doesn't happen.
It is registered that you called, and we do try to call you back to make sure everything's okay.
In case the person is not able to give you an address, is there a way to track them down?
Yeah, they can. Where the call
Yes,
is coming.
there is. If it's on a cell phone, we can do a ping and identify a certain location. It takes a little bit of time to do that. It's not automatic. But there is that ability.
Landline, I can.
And with a landline, we have the address automatically. But with cells, no, we can do it. It just
But
takes
they
a little
still
more
they
time.
turn
It's
up
just
at
not
the
on.
address where the phone had been registered.
Everybody deals with whatever call they get. You don't have to possess. They have to possess the skills, and there's an extensive training period for that. I mean, they do, was it 4 to 5 weeks in class, and at least 6 to 7 months on floor training before they're allowed to go on the road. And even then, they're still monitored periodically. Because we're basically dealing with people's lives.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming.